In this video, we're going to take a look at more file usage in Python. And the first thing I want to introduce is using the with command to open and close files. This actually automates the process of opening and closing files, and it's recommended that you do it this way. The scenarios that you might worry about is you open a file and then your program is executing some code and an error happens. And if an error happens, then you may not get to the end of your program where you typically would close a file. In that case, you've left the file open and you're waiting for the operating system is waiting for a close command to happen, which may not happen, and then who knows what happens with your file. So the with command is a built-in Python code that will handle that situation for you. So if an error occurs, the with command will make sure that your file gets closed. So here's the format. With, you put your command in here. In this case, we're going to open the file readwrite.txt and with the UTF as encoding, and we're going to name that so as the file F. And then once you do that, you can use F as we have been before. So I'm going to write to F hello world. That's going to put us at the end of the file when we do that right. We'll seek back to the beginning, and we'll print that line, hello world. So we'll read that line back in from readwrite.txt. Actually, that should be txt. And then down here, we're going to do an F seek 0, just to show you what happens when you do that. Using with to open files. So we're going to run this and see what happens. And we get an error, and we're actually getting, and there's the hello world. We're getting an error right here on this f.seek0. The problem is we're doing this outside the with command. So once you exit this with command, that actually closes the file for you. So the program no longer knows what f is. So that's not going to work. But we can run this without that. And it's just as I said, the file is open, we call it F, we write hello world to that file, go to the beginning, read the first line, which is hello world, and print it. Although, you should notice that I forgot something here, didn't I? I certainly did. I forgot my R strips. Okay. That's better. Doesn't look any better, but it is better. Okay, so we're going to use the with command again, and I'm going to show you how to automate this process of reading and writing to a file, in particular reading in from a file. If it has more than one line or two lines, you may not know how many lines the file has in it, in which case you want to do some kind of loop. Now, here I'm doing I'm going to show you two things. First, I'm showing you a with command, but I'm using the with command to actually open two files. So I'm opening a file called r.txt, and I'm calling that in file. So that's going to be the input file. I'm going to use that file to input some things, and then I'm going to actually write some stuff to a different file. So I'm opening a write file, and I'm calling that out file. So let's take a peek at those files. I'm going to open. And there's read write from the last program. Let's take a look at that. So it says hello world, no surprise there. So let's take a look at read. Some poets only use lowercase letters and no punctuation. That could be annoying to some or maybe not. Okay, so that's not very interesting. And let's take a look at write. So currently write doesn't have anything in it. So we're going to open both of those files using the with command. And again, the read is going to be called in file, and the write is going to be called out file. And then inside the with command, so these files are open, for line and in file. So what's going to happen is this loop is going to loop through that in file and do a read line, and that read line is going to go into the variable line. So the very first time this executes is going to open. Oh, I closed. Close Notepad. So in the first go through or first iteration of this for loop, line is going to equal the string some poets. Okay? Then it'll be only, then use, and so on. And so what we're going to do is take that line, I'm going to write it, but I'm going to write it to out file, and when I do, I'm going to write it into uppercase. So this should loop through the entire file in file and write that file back out to a different file, but in uppercase. So let's see, for loops and files. Let's run that. It doesn't print anything out. I never actually ask it to print anything. I just ask it to write out to the file. So now let's go take a look at, well, let's take a look at read again, just in case. So we haven't done anything to read. And the other thing is, just notice that I can save read inside of Notepad. And I can do that because that file has been closed in Python. So now we have access to read and write it in other programs. And it was closed with the with statement. Now let's take a look at write. And it has the exact same, I don't know what you would call that. It's not a poem, prose, or whatever. But now it's in uppercase. So line was some poets, and we wrote that out to out file, but we put it in uppercase using the dot upper notation, and so on, looping through that file in file. So you can use for loops. Now, here's something I wanted to point out. The last bit with files is that if you have a file, you can actually append to the end of it. And this is useful if you just want to add information into a file. This is going to open up the r.text, which has that, again, poem or whatever you want to call it in it. And it's opening it in a new mode. And this is append, the append mode. And I'm opening it, this time I'm calling it F. And I'm just going to write to F more ramblings. Now when you open a file in append mode, oh, it's yelling at me about spaces. Yes. Thank you, PyCharm. When you open a file in append mode, the file pointer is actually at the end of the file. So when I do this f.write, I'm not going to overwrite the first line. Normally, the way we've been opening files, the file pointer is actually at the beginning of the file. When we open this in R mode or W mode, the file pointer points at the beginning of the file. When you open it in append mode, it's going to be at the end of the file. So when I do this write, it's going to just put this at the end, or it's going to append it. So let's run this. And I don't ask it to print anything. So let's go in here and take a peek. And we actually opened up R and appended it. So let's look at R. And oh, you actually have to run the file appending. Boy, I was a little nervous there for a minute. It didn't work. Let's try that again. Okay. And then now we have, or maybe not, listed on the end of it. Okay. I actually could have done this another way. Inside of here, we could have done for line in F, and then just print line, and then that will print out the contents of the file. So you're just looping through the file, reading in line by line, and then we just print that line out. And that would also show us the contents of the file. Now, why didn't that work? I'm doing a good job of showing how to screw things up. Well, it didn't work because when I appended this to the end, where's the file pointer? It's at the end of the file, and this started at the end of the file, and well, there's nothing after the end of the file, so let's take this back to the beginning. Doing a good job of showing my mistakes. People like that, I guess. I don't know. There we go. Well, the only obnoxious bit is, of course, the prints. Put a new line at the end of each one of those. I guess there's an easy way to, well, all right, I'm just building code here, but we can take care of that. We'll just make a new string. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. There, I'll make a new string. And now we read in the line, we add that line to the string, and then we print it off. And every time I run this program, we're appending the phrase more ramblings on the end of it. So if I just keep running this, I'm going to get more ramblings, more ramblings, more ramblings. I might want to put a new line on the end of this. Notice that I didn't put a new line in my right. So this is just going to keep making one big long line, more ramblings. Okay, that's probably enough of that. All right, so more things with reading and writing to files in Python. So there's two big concepts in here, using the with statement and using for loops to loop through a file. Oh, and I guess having multiple files in the different modes too. So three big concepts in here: read mode, write mode, and append mode.